Thank you, Nina Enrique. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. A fiery exchange over the South China Sea. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio meets with his Philippine counterpart, calling out China's dangerous and destabilizing actions and reaffirming America's ironclad defense pledge to Manila. In California, a new wildfire erupts near Los Angeles, already reeling from recent blazes. Thousands are forced to evacuate as firefighters race to contain it.
The Hughes fire is now estimated to be over 9,400 acres with 0% containment. The National Weather Service has extended the red flag warning through 10 a.m. on Friday.
Across the South, record-breaking cold grips the region with rare snowfall and freezing temperatures, making history.
What happened this week in the Gulf Coast shows us we can't ignore winter either. We still have to be prepared for winter. And that means being prepared for a large variety of conditions, right? More than ever, we have to be prepared to spend a little and be prepared, right? Unless we want to be caught flat-footed.
And in Tennessee, a teenager opens fire at a high school. We'll bring you the latest on the investigation into this shocking incident.
Yeah, back and forth, but now we cannot get a hold of my other son. He's in the ROTC. Apparently, he's with one of the kids that committed the crime. And they were doing their regular jog around the school when this took place.
NET25 World News starts now. Tensions in the South China Sea took center stage as the new U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, spoke with his Philippine counterpart. Rubio called out China's dangerous and destabilizing actions in the disputed waters, reaffirming Washington's ironclad defense commitment to Manila. In a statement, the U.S. State Department said Rubio stressed that Beijing's behavior threatens regional peace and stability and goes against international law. And this comes as the Philippines continues to face repeated maritime confrontations with China, particularly in areas within Manila's exclusive economic zone. The call follows Rubio's meeting with counterparts from Australia, India, and Japan at the Quad Forum, a China-focused alliance aimed at ensuring stability in the Indo-Pacific. Analysts say the meeting signals continuity in countering Beijing, with the U.S. making it a top priority under President Trump's second term. Rubio and Philippine Foreign Minister Enrique Manalo also discussed strengthening security cooperation, expanding economic ties, and fostering regional collaboration. Meanwhile, just before Trump's swearing in, the Philippines and the U.S. wrapped up their fifth joint maritime drills in the South China Sea, part of an ongoing effort to uphold freedom of navigation in the region. Visiting the Philippines last week, Japanese Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya said a trilateral initiative to boost cooperation launched by Japan, the U.S., and the Philippines at a summit last year would be strengthened when the new U.S. administration took over in Washington. Meanwhile, over in China, they called for the United States to stay out of the South China Sea issue after new U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had spoken to his Philippine counterpart, Foreign Minister Enrique Manalo, on the phone to discuss China's actions.
中国在有关海域的活动合理合法，无可非议。美国不是南海问题的当事方，也无权介入中非两国之间的涉海问题。 美菲军事合作不得损害中方在南海的主权和海洋权益，更不能以此为菲律宾的非法主张背书。中方将继续采取必要措施，坚定捍卫自身领土主权和海洋权益，维护南海的和平稳定。
In a major development, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. announced the release of 17 Filipino seafarers who were captured by Houthi rebels in Yemen back in November. The seafarers, along with the rest of the crew of the MV Galaxy Leader, are now safe and under the care of the Philippine Embassy in Muscat, Oman. President Marcos shared that they'll be reunited with their families in the Philippines very soon. The crew was hijacked while sailing in the Red Sea near Hodeidah in November 2023. And since then, the Philippine government has been working tirelessly for their release. President Marcos also emphasized the importance of protecting the rights and welfare of Filipino seafarers and ensuring equal opportunities in the maritime industry, regardless of gender or background. He expressed gratitude to the Sultan of Oman, Haitham bin Tariq, for his crucial role in mediating their safe passage. The president also thanked Philippine government agencies and private groups who collaborated with foreign entities for over a year to bring the crew home. This incident, he said, highlighted the need for the enactment of Republic Act 1/2021, the Magna Carta of Filipino seafarers, which aims to protect the rights and well-being of Filipino mariners. And a historic winter storm swept across the U.S. Gulf Coast this week, delivering rare snowfall to cities like Houston, New Orleans, and even parts of the Florida Panhandle. And experts are saying this unusual event is a strong reminder to stay prepared for extreme winter weather, even in warmer climates. A rare winter wonderland in regions better known for palm trees and sandy beaches. From above, New Orleans looks stunning under a record 10 inches of snow, but on the ground, icy roads and freezing temperatures have created dangerous conditions.
What happened this week in the Gulf Coast shows us we can't ignore winter either. We still have to be prepared for winter. And that means being prepared for a large variety of conditions, right? More than ever, we have to be prepared to spend a little and be prepared, right? Unless we want to be caught flat-footed. And since the 70s, this is really the first snow of this magnitude we've seen. So that's been 50 years now. So certainly most people in Houston have never seen a snow like this, even though there was one in 1973 on par. When you go over to Louisiana, Florida Panhandle, virtually everyone there has never seen a snow this hard. So by virtue of this, we don't have a lot of data to say, well, you know, these once a century or once in a generation events are happening more often because they only happen once a century or once a generation, right? So that makes it really hard to do the kind of analysis where you look at lots of data and you can correlate that with climate models and how global warming works and say, okay, well, here's a trend and it matches up with what the models are telling us. If something's a once in a century event, it's hard to get a computer model to replicate it, right? One of the problems with climate change is that we have to be ready for an expanding envelope of conditions, right? If you're on the Gulf Coast, you have to be prepared for the potential for hurricanes to be stronger because of warmer oceans, more fuel, right? You have to be prepared for heat waves to be more intense or frequent, and for heavier rains to be heavier. And all these things we're seeing happening. But you also have to be prepared for once in a while you could get a full-on winter storm like we just saw, right? It may not be 8 inches of snow in New Orleans again in our lifetimes, but it could happen, or it might happen somewhere else along the Gulf Coast. So the big, I'd say, interesting and somewhat controversial topic is whether changes in the Arctic might be prompting the jet stream to behave weirdly and perhaps cause occasional outbursts of colder snow to get worse. And that relies on some analysis of the past, say, 20 or 30 years and looking at observations. They're trying to suss out how the jet stream is changing, how the polar vortex that's normally in the stratosphere above the North Pole might be sinking and cutting off over the U.S. And those are challenging analyses. And you also have to factor out that these things vary naturally, right? Over the course of a few years or even 10 or 20 years, you can get periods with more of these and less of these. So is climate change causing these to happen more often? There's arguments that it might be based on trends over the certain time periods, but then if you change that time period window by a few years, the trend may go away. So it's been really hard to establish really robust trends.
Breaking news from Southern California, a new wildfire is rapidly spreading through the dry brush near Los Angeles. And the used fire is currently 0% contained and burning at an alarming rate of 30 acres per minute, sending thick smoke and flames hundreds of feet into the air.
A new wildfire rapidly blazed through an area north of Los Angeles on Wednesday. fueled by strong winds and dry brush. In just a few hours, the Hughes fire grew to 2/3 the size of the Eaton fire, one of the two monster infernos that have ravaged parts of the city. The Los Angeles County Sheriff said on Wednesday that 31,000 people had been given evacuation orders and another 23,000 faced evacuation warnings.
The Hughes fire is now estimated to be over 9,400 acres with 0% containment, with no structures reported damaged or destroyed. We have over 4,000 firefighting personnel assigned to the incident, and we had a very robust ground and air response to the incident that you see behind me. The National Weather Service has extended the red flag warning through 10 a.m. on Friday for most of Los Angeles and Ventura counties. Light to moderate Santa Ana winds will continue tonight and into Thursday. The situation remains dynamic, and the fire remains a difficult fire to contain, although we are getting the upper hand.
The new blaze put further strain on firefighters, who have almost managed to bring two other major fires in the area under control. The California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection said about 1,100 firefighters had been deployed around Southern California in anticipation of fast-moving fires, while the LA County Fire Chief said more than 4,000 firefighters were working on the Hughes fire. Southern California has gone without significant rainfall for 9 months, contributing to the hazardous dry conditions. Rain is forecast from Saturday to Monday, which could give the area some much-needed relief.
Heartbreaking news from Nashville, Tennessee. A 17-year-old boy opened fire in the cafeteria at Antioch High School, killing a 16-year-old girl and injuring another student. The shooter, identified as Solomon Henderson, then turned the gun on himself.
Yeah, back and forth, but now we cannot get a hold of my other son. He's in the ROTC. Apparently he's with one of the kids that committed the crime. And they were doing their regular jog around the school when this took place, and they bum rushed him to a room, as far as we know. That's as far as we heard from him. Our daughter, she was in the cafeteria like minutes before it happened, so they rushed her to a room. We're in contact with her now, but not with my son, so we don't know we don't know what's going on. Hopefully it's just that kid that commit the crime, and there's no other one shooting in there. But so many cops are going in there right now, it makes you think there's another shooter. Hopefully there's no other active shooter, but we don't know.
Right, we haven't heard any reports of that yet.
Yeah.
A tragedy unfolded just after 11 a.m. when Henderson entered the cafeteria, fired multiple rounds, and struck Jocelyn Correa Escalante. Police say a 17-year-old male was also grazed by a bullet before the shooter fatally shot himself.
We had a male student that was 17 years old that rode the bus this morning to Antioch High School. During the course of the morning, this individual made his way to the cafeteria where he then confronted a 16-year-old, as we identified as a female Hispanic student, fired, striking her. She is deceased. There is another male, 17-year-old young man that was wounded with a graze wound. The shooter was 17 years old. He entered into the cafeteria, firing multiple rounds in the cafeteria, striking her, and then before pulling the weapon on himself.
The chaotic aftermath was seen outside the school, where first responders performed CPR as victims were rushed to ambulances. One student described the scene inside the cafeteria. This tragic incident comes nearly 2 years after another shooting at Nashville's Covenant School, where a former student killed 6 people in response to today's violence. A community healing event is scheduled, and the school will be closed for the rest of the week.
As a city, as a community, it is impossibly difficult to be here once again dealing with the devastation of gun violence in one of our school communities. As a Metro Schools parent, I know how difficult it is to receive a notification of an emergency operation at a Metro school. I can't imagine how difficult it must be to receive the notification that there has been this level of violence in a school community.
And a chilling knife attack in the German city of Aschaffenburg, where a 28-year-old Afghan man was arrested after fatally stabbing two people, a 41-year-old and a 2-year-old boy. 3 others were wounded in the incident that has reignited concerns over public safety and migration policies ahead of Germany's upcoming elections.
German police arrested a 28-year-old Afghan man after a knife attack that left 2 people dead in a park in the city of Aschaffenburg on Wednesday. Police said the victims were a 41-year-old German man who was passing by and a 2-year-old boy of Moroccan descent. Officials said the 3 other people were wounded, including a 61-year-old man, a child, and a teacher. According to the Bavarian State Interior Minister, Joachim Ehrmann, the suspect had a history of violent behavior.
The suspect has been arrested at least 3 times in the past for violent offences. He was admitted for psychiatric treatment and then released each time. A first search of his room, where he was accommodated in the asylum seeker centre, did not reveal any evidence of a radical Islamist attitude, but only medication which was found there that could fit his psychiatric treatment.
Ehrmann also added that the suspect had had his asylum process closed, and while he planned to leave Germany in December, the suspect had stayed for the psychiatric treatment. Police said there was no indication there might be further suspects involved in the incident. Hundreds gathered later in the city's central square to mourn the victims. The stabbings are the latest in a series of violent attacks in Germany that have sparked security and migration anxiety ahead of the February 23rd elections. In December, a Saudi doctor was charged with murder after ramming his car into people at a Christmas market in the town of Magdeburg, leaving 6 people dead.
President Trump has declared a national emergency at the southern border, paving the way for the possible deployment of thousands of U.S. troops. Take a look.
President Donald Trump on Wednesday directed prosecutors to criminally probe state and local officials who resist, obstruct, or fail to comply with his immigration enforcement efforts. That's according to a memo seen by Reuters, written by the Deputy U.S. Attorney General. Reuters politics editor Scott Malone explains.
It's an escalation of the use of the Justice Department's criminal investigative power. Obviously, people who are living in the country illegally or people who are employing those people illegally have always faced potential criminal investigation. This adds a new category of people who could face investigation, which is city and state officials, some of them Democrats, some of them in very heavily Democratic constituencies, and some in communities that have declared themselves to be sanctuary communities that didn't want to go along with federal immigration crackdowns, and warning them that they too could face criminal consequences.
California's Attorney General Rob Bonta, a Democrat, dismissed Trump's directive as a scare tactic during a Wednesday interview on CNN. Still, it sets up potential confrontations with local officials in so-called sanctuary cities.
The first Trump administration, they came out of the gate very quickly with some policies that very quickly ran into opposition in Democratic cities and states. And this is a sign that they're trying to plan ahead, and they're trying to eliminate things that could serve as barriers.
Shortly after taking office, Trump declared illegal immigration a national emergency.
All illegal entry will immediately be halted.
A U.S. official said on Wednesday that the military would send 1,000 additional active-duty troops to the southern border. In Mexico, authorities have begun constructing giant tent shelters in the city of Ciudad Juarez to prepare for a possible influx of Mexicans deported under Trump's plan.
And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. And now to South America, where Colombia is dealing with a surge in violence along its northeastern border near Venezuela. Special forces have been sent to guerrilla-controlled areas after clashes between rebel groups left over 100 people dead and displaced more than 20,000. The fighting has centered in the Catatumbo region, a mountainous area critical for coca plantations and drug smuggling routes. Two rebel groups, the National Liberation Army or ELN, and Factions for the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia or FARC, had been maintaining a truce in the region, but tensions boiled over last week, with both groups accusing each other of targeting civilians. Reports say ELN rebels executed civilians they suspected of aiding their rivals. Meanwhile, the ELN has pointed fingers back at the FARC for committing atrocities. Fear has gripped the region, with entire communities fleeing for safety.
Tenemos unos cuerpos que aún no han sido recuperados, que estamos tratando de localizar con las funerarias que están trabajando para ello. Y el tema de la seguridad, hay una zozobra, un miedo en la comunidad, que ese es el miedo que se está generando todos los desplazamientos. Necesitamos recobrar la seguridad para tener garantías de vida en nuestro municipio.
The Colombian government has declared a state of emergency and deployed 5,000 troops to stabilize the area. President Gustavo Petro has also suspended peace talks with the ELN, accusing the group of committing war crimes. The violence has left thousands of homes empty, turning towns into ghost villages. Some residents have crossed into Venezuela seeking refuge, while others remain trapped, hoping the violence will subside. The United Nations reports at least 30 people have been kidnapped, including 3 government officials involved in peace negotiations. Colombia's army has rescued dozens, but with many still stranded in dangerous areas, the crisis remains far from over. A dire situation continues to unfold as communities grapple with the fallout of this ongoing conflict. Meanwhile, hundreds of Donald Trump supporters who had been serving prison sentences for participating in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol were freed after the new president pardoned more than 1,500 people, including some who assaulted police officers. Take a look.
U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping pardon of more than 1,500 people charged with crimes in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol drew outrage from lawmakers as well as police officers who battled the mob in 2021.
This ain't the first time that I've been disappointed by the criminal justice system, but in this case, it's one man ultimately who's responsible for ignoring accountability for individuals that assaulted police officers. Once I was out in the crowd, I was beaten, restrained. At one point, an individual, Kyle Young, lunged at me while I was being restrained and attempted to remove my firearm from its holster. All while, other individuals were, kind of egging him on, telling him to kill me with my gun. Another individual, Daniel Rodriguez, used a taser device, applied it to my neck numerous times. And finally, Thomas Sibick stripped me of my badge and my radio, all while I was being, again, restrained and beaten. These are the individuals that pled guilty and were sentenced, and Donald Trump saw it fit to pardon them.
The unconditional pardons come despite both Vice President J.D. Vance and Trump's pick for Attorney General, previously saying they believed those who committed violent crimes were unlikely to be pardoned. Reuters reporter Joey Axe.
This is a really clear signal right off the bat that Trump in his second term is not going to feel particularly constrained.
So this is a big one.
He's going to do what he wants to do without a lot of regard for whether it's popular, whether other people on his team, whether other Republicans think it's the right thing to do. This is Trump 2.0. This is an unfettered president who feels that he can use executive power as aggressively as he wants to. The message, if you want to call it that, to his supporters is that he's rewarding those who are loyal to him, right? But the more dangerous version of that, I suppose, is he's signaling that even people who engage in political violence can be assured that he'll take care of them as long as it was done in support of his political aims.
Trump's pardons extended from the people who committed only misdemeanors such as trespassing to those who attacked police officers, and to the far smaller group who planned the assault on democracy. An attorney for Enrique Tarrio, former leader of the Proud Boys, said he was released from prison on Tuesday. Tarrio was not present at the Capitol on January 6, but was serving 22 years in prison, the longest sentence imposed on any defendant, after he was convicted of seditious conspiracy for his role in planning the attack.
Samsung Electronics unveiled its newest flagship smartphone powered by Google's artificial intelligence model, hoping its upgraded AI features can reinvigorate sales and fend off Apple and Chinese rivals.
Samsung has unveiled new AI smartphones in a bid to fend off Apple and Chinese rivals. The new Galaxy S25 models were launched at an event in California on Wednesday. They're powered by chips from US firm Qualcomm. Company Mobile Experience Chief T.M. Rowe claimed they set a new standard in mobile innovation, and a lot is riding on the new devices being a success. Samsung's preliminary fourth-quarter profit, released earlier this month, missed analyst forecasts by a wide margin. Experts say the firm also faces flagging sales for its flagship foldable phones, once heralded as the next big thing for the sector. The new handsets use Google's Gemini AI system and claim to offer more personalized service. Google DeepMind CEO Demis Hassabis appeared in a recorded video at the event.
We believe the next frontier for AI will be agentic systems, systems that are able to accomplish tasks and do useful things for you. And now, we're so excited to be partnering with Samsung to bring some of its groundbreaking capabilities to the Gemini app.
The question is whether AI services will really prompt consumers to buy new phones. Some industry watchers argue a really compelling new product is yet to appear. But Technalysis President Bob O'Donnell says Samsung has taken a step in the right direction.
What I saw today, to be honest with you, was kind of like the first real working examples of AI stuff that I think normal people are going to want to use. I mean, there's been a lot of hype around AI and some of the things theoretically it could do, but I feel like today we started to get a hint at some stuff that, regular people are going to want to use and that will be truly impactful.
Samsung touted features including its Now Brief service, which can make personalized recommendations and display customized items ranging from calendars and news to bedroom temperatures. The South Korean giant kept the starting price of the phones unchanged at $799.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you for joining us. Good night.